Okay, am I dribbling at the prospect of driving the RS3 home? Hello and welcome back to the Volks Wizard channel. Now there's been a lot of chat recently about how Audi are going to discontinue their legendary 5-cylinder engine in 2027 and how that will mean the inevitable demise of a car that we love dearly, the Audi RS3. I'm a big fan of that engine. I've personally owned a 2010 TTRS Roadster manual and an 8V generation RS3 saloon, facelift but pre-OPF. I still really actually miss that car. But I realise I've not actually done any meaningful miles in the current generation RS3, the 8Y, which we have here. So I thought I'd fix that in this video while Audi UK still have them on their press fleets and they still very kindly allow me to borrow one. Thanks guys. So today's video is a full review of this 2025 facelift, well, actually 2026 model year RS3 Sportback. But instead of doing a quick squirt on the local roads for the cameras, I'm going to take it from here in the Midlands to the west coast of Wales, and instead of the usual hackneyed YouTube format of a coffee run, we're going to keep it real and do a Tesco meal deal run. So this is a 3 to 4 hour drive on a variety of roads, from the M6 and probably heavy traffic onto mountain roads where the temperatures are almost freezing. So by the end of the journey, when we're on black rock sands, hopefully looking at the RSC, I'll have a good idea as to whether the new R3 is a car that should be on my to-buy list, or whether the Golf 8.5R is another example of less being more. But before we get started by having a look around the outside and the inside, let's have a look at the RS3 range today and also consider the thorny subject of price. Now on first impression, there doesn't appear to be a lot of difference between this facelift car and the pre-facelift version. But once you know the changes, it's quite easy to tell the difference. We'll come to that shortly. Let's talk about options now though. So generally Audi UK press cars are usually fully loaded and quite expensive as a result. Well, this car is actually basic for an RS3 and still quite expensive. We have got 3 factory options. We've got Camorra Grey, £595. It only dawned on me about 6 years after it came out that this is a replacement for Nardo Grey. I don't know why I never thought of that before. It's just not a primary. I like this a lot. I've never really been a fan of Nardo. We've also got the red brake calipers, which they charge you £300 for. But the big ticket item is £2,500 for the bucket seats. We'll have a look at shortly. So what's changed with the facelift? Well, the grille is even bigger. The pattern in it, they call it rhombus, but let's call it diamond. Before that, it used to be a honeycomb, and they've got rid of the body colour section that used to break up the grille from these outer grills. Now it's just gloss black, which makes it look even hungrier. And these air curtains, which are functional, are much more defined on this car. So that goes into the wheel arch there, and I'm sure has some aerodynamic benefits. So it's subtly more aggressive than the pre-facelift car, but I think the big difference is at the back. The headlights are the same shape, but they've redesigned what's in them. So the LED pattern, checker pattern, which was down here, is now across here. Admittedly, the graphics and lighting animations can be a bit gimmicky, but what matters is that you've got standard LED matrix headlights with a superb dip beam and a spectacular main beam that is fully automated, making driving at night safer and less tiring. Very controversially, there is no RS3 badge on the grille, and it's not been stolen. This is how they are, which is a bit strange because you pay all that money for an R3, you want the badge. Actually, while editing this video and checking the configurator, it would appear the badge is now back, which is brilliant, but you've got to ask yourself why they took it away in the first place. They've also redesigned the Audi 4 rings for the first time in decades, which, yeah, they look a lot more modern. Okay, down the side then, let's start off then with the wheels. So these were the standard wheel on the pre-facelift carbon black. Before, the base model had some lovely diamond cut wheels, which are now similar to the ones on the Vorsprung, rather confusingly. So these haven't really changed much. We have 9-inch wide wheels on the front and 8-inch on the back, 265 30/19 on the front, 245 35/19 on the back. So yeah, so you get wider tyres on the front to try and counter the understeer. We'll talk about that later when we go for a drive. The calipers are pretty chunky, you've got two-piece brake discs as well. So yeah, a lot more hardcore than the Golf R. So down the side, it's really hard to spot any changes. The panels are the same. We've got this flared arch, which is unique to the RS3. It has apparently an active vent there as well. I think this is new for the facelift. Whoopie-doo. The sill, if it has been redesigned, it looks really similar. The quarter panel is the same, it's the same as every A3. It's a curvy car as standard, the A3, so they didn't feel the need to make that wider, and it kind of all looks actually probably a bit more cohesive than the standard car, which doesn't have the wide front arches. Now at the back, there's quite a lot to talk about here, strangely. We don't have the carbon roof spoiler. If you want that, you have to go carbon black or Vorsprung. So down to here, it's the same. The badge has been redesigned, like the front one. The RS3 badge is now new as well. So before, the R used to overlay the rhombus, and now it's separate. The rear lights are different. They're a bit fussy before. Now you've got these LED elements that get bigger as they go across the light, which is really cool. Onto the bumper then. So this was a real fussy bit of design before, where we had a smaller diffuser and then we had a separate honeycomb section above it that really didn't do anything. Now they've got rid of that. They've made the diffuser much more impressive. I only just noticed it's got this sort of grille louvre here, which is really cool. Big bits of piano black. The exhaust tips are nicely integrated in there, and they're black on this car. And we've got this Maxton style, I think it's just a reflector in the middle there, but it looks, yeah, I mean the old one looked great, but this looks even better. And then we've got these, they're not sort of fake grills, they're just inlays with, again, I think some more reflectors. So yeah, at the back, if you want to save money with a pre-facelift car, you will, but you won't get this amazing rear end. Before we look inside, let's just have a look at the key. So it's got RS on the back of it, and it looks like that on the other side. It feels quite nice, and it should wear quite well, unlike the glossy ones you get on Golf 8. How the door handle feels and sounds is becoming a regular feature of my reviews, and this actually sounds fantastic, better than the Golf. Sounds like an Audi, which is nice. Now this interior, it's okay, it's definitely better than the old one, but I think it looks better in the dark. If you said that to a person, it would be quite insulting. The material quality here and there isn't too great, but actually the ambient lighting does look really good. And what I've noticed about this interior is that they seem to try to get rid of as much silver as possible, whether it be the silver paddles or the silver trims on the center console. It's a lot more black and a lot more sort of modern Audi, but unfortunately the poor material quality in certain areas remains. So the door cards look, okay, but we don't have any flop lining in there. This plastic's a bit cheap. Got Sonos sound system, which does make the interior look a little bit better, but these switches look quite poor as well. This I don't really like. The carpet, I'm really not going to bang on about this, but it shouldn't be in a car at this price point. Even these carpets, they could improve these with a bit of colour and maybe an RS logo, but they don't. This sort of shiny plastic down here is quite depressing as well, and there's no option to have an Alcantara pack that covers that up like you could on the 8V generation car, which looked amazing. Stainless pedals, plastic dead pedal, again that doesn't really help. But microfiber on the doors with the facelift now extends across the dash, and actually if you keep your eyes above the centre console area, it's actually quite a nice car. Let's have a look at the bucket seats before we get inside. So these, as I said, £2,500 option. You can have them with black stitching or red. The red stitching though does brighten up the cabin. There was no option to brighten it up in the pre-facelift car, so I think that's a good choice, no cost option. What does bug me a bit though is that they're not really in the same ballpark as the wingbacks when it comes to drama. Now they look okay, but then if you look at the ones in the new Passat and Tiguan, they look very similar and not overly bolstered, and there's quite a possibility they might be too high for me as well, because they don't actually go very low. Also, this section from here to here looks unusually long, and I know some people have trouble with that. I'm pretty average height, so I'm sure I'll be okay, but we'll see how they feel on the long trip that's coming up. Actually, the best bit is the back, but we'll have a look at the back of them shortly. On the plus side, you do still get an airbag with these seats, which you didn't used to get on the wingbacks. On the Vorsprung, by the way, because you lose I think memory function, which is standard, you only have to pay £2 for these, so it's a little bit cheaper. Okay, let's get inside and have a close look. Okay, so as you can see, with everything off, everything's sort of just a black screen. The haptic steering wheel, which has come in for this generation, which is weird because Volkswagen are getting rid of these as quickly as they're getting rid of ID3 designers. So yeah, it looks a lot more welcoming with everything fired up. We've got the virtual cockpit, which is very configurable. Yeah, it's a good one in this car, as you expect for the price point. We've got 10.1-inch infotainment screen. We have got separate climate control, which is better than integrated into infotainment, but it's not as good as knobs. It's not as tactile. You know, these are a little bit fiddly, but you do get used to them. We've got some switches down here, which is a nice touch mobile phone charging pad there. I don't like this piano black. Yeah, I know a lot of people don't like it. I actually like it in a lot of cars. I just don't like it in this car. Weirdly, even though the pre-facing car was the first one to have the little stubby shifter, they've ditched that now and they've gone for this sort of little lozenge that you slide back and forth to change gears. It feels really nice and engineered, but the old one was nice. The problem with it from a design perspective is that you couldn't inlay into it which position it was in, so you had to have this clumsy little bit here that told you which gear you were in. So this, I guess, looks a bit cleaner, but I kind of miss the tactility of that old aluminium shifter. We've still got the, I suppose, clumsily fitted Urus vents on the top of the dashboard, but I don't really notice them as much as I did when the car first came out. The steering wheel, we've lost the really nice, sort of comforting flat bottom wheel. We've had an Audis for ages, and now we've got this flat bottom and flat top, and we've got these big red buttons here as well. So this is for the sort of racetrack mode, which you'll probably never really use, or this takes you into RS Individual, which is a mix and match. You can choose to have what you want on there, so that's quite a nice touch. Only problem is they make it very hard to see the cruise control stalk, but once you get used to that, you shouldn't need to look at it. These paddles, which do feel cold to touch, they're not plastic. The old ones were zinc, but they were silver. But no, I'm pretty sure that's metal because it is cool to the touch. Black headlining and fabric on the pillars there. This dash top's okay, it's soft. Sonos grills on the tweeters there. And we have an adapter there for the USB-Cs, which are standard on this car. Electric parking brake with no auto hold, so presumably that just comes on as standard. This is probably my favourite bit of the facelift, because on the pre-facelift car this was just black plastic, unlike on the previous generation car where it was this nice aluminium, and now aluminium is back, so they have tried. Nice one, Audi. Heated seats here. Let's have a quick look in the glove box. So actually it's flocky lined, which is nice. It's a shame they couldn't do that on the door cards. It would have gone a long way to making it look a little bit nicer. Okay, the seat is now in my driving position. Let's see how much space is left in the back. Before I get in though, let's have a look at the back of these bucket seats. You would never tell from the front they look this good from the back. They don't actually call them carbon on the configurator, so I presume they're not carbon, but really they should show photos of the back more prominently than the fronts, because I think they look incredible, and you would never think they look so plain from the front when they look that good from the back. They don't take up much room, and they've got room for your knees there, but that's not a very comfy place to have your knee, as we'll probably find out in a sec. Door card, downgrade, corner now. So we've got the red stitch, we have got the same trim here, door handle, we've got ambient lighting there, but the little flecks of ambient lighting have gone. Got Sonos on there though, so it's not been too downgraded. Okay, let's get in. Okay, that's not actually too terrible, although the cutouts for the knees are comically quite low, and I haven't got the longest legs in the world, so some people's knees will be up here, which is probably a bit less comfortable. It does feel a bit claustrophobic in here, I've got to admit. It's quite dark, and the windows feel quite small. But yeah, there's plenty of room. I have got headroom as well. There's a decent view out the front, though these bits don't leave an awful lot of room here, and you can't really look through there unless you're really short. But yeah, it could be worse. I'd quite happily go in it for a reasonably long journey. Now, let's have a look in the boots. So no power tailgate on this one. I'm not sure if the Vorsprung gets that. But it's a pretty good boot, very similar size to that in the Golf. There's no spare wheel though because of the four-wheel drive system, so we've got this foam insert where you can put some stuff in. There's tools in there, air compressor, tyre foam, and a big battery as far back as possible, presumably to counter understeer. Well, we'll see if that works when we go for a drive. Now, let's have a look under the bonnets, which is really the pièce de résistance on the RS3. Take in, by the way, the Audi Sport chassis number. So it's not actually made by Audi. This car is made by Audi Sport, which is a cool touch. And there it is, 5 cylinders then, 400 horsepower, 500 newton meters of torque. What an engine. And they've actually designed a nice engine cover. I think you can have a carbon version of it, but who's ever really going to see that? You can spend that money better elsewhere on this car. Let's go for a proper drive then. So foot on the brake. Now when it was delivered yesterday, it sounded really loud, and it turned out the delivery driver had it in dynamic mode. When I drove it after he dropped it off about an hour later, it was still in dynamic. It's definitely switched out of dynamic overnight. That is, yeah. But it's what it does when you're driving really that matters, and I'm not convinced it's that tuneful, but we'll find out on this proper drive today. Okay, let's just set the nav up then. I'm using Waze. We're going to go to Porthmadog in Wales, a route I know well. There's some amazing roads on the way, but it starts off with motorway, which is fine by me. I've plugged this in because I've got a mega mount on the back, metal plate, that doesn't like the wireless charging, and I really need to keep my phone charged today. Okay, so it's picking up CarPlay straight away. And let's put in Porthmadog. Enable wireless CarPlay on here, we've got USB only. So let's go to Porthmadog. We're heading to Tesco, 3 hours 40, so we get there at 3 o'clock.
Let's get started. Drive safely.
Let's get going. Okay, now we're safely installed on the motorway. I can tell you a little bit more about this trip. Today is the last day of British summertime. That means British winter time starts tomorrow. The clocks go back. I have a natural urge, inclination this time of year to drive four-wheel drive Audis when the days get shorter. That's because you can use all their performance when the roads are greasy. You can't say that about a Porsche, for example. I'm just going to settle down to an easy cruise now with the adaptive cruise on. We're going to go around Birmingham and then down the M54, and then we should see the Welsh Mountains. And yeah, that's what it's all about. The open road, the sense of adventure, and in an engaging car. It's going to be a good day. Generally, traffic jams are not great, but I want to test this car in the real world, and the real world is full of traffic jams. So we're doing 40 now on the M5, and the adaptive cruise is managing the situation really well. I can just relax, you know. Obviously I've got to stay alert and pay attention, but it manages the slowing down and the speeding up, and it's really good. Now we're speeding up a bit. Just hold the stalk up for a couple of seconds and you get 5 mile an hour jumps. So that's 40, which I think is, yeah, still the displayed speed limit. I am concluding though that the ride is a little bit too firm for my tastes. So if there is an option to spec the adaptive dampers, then you should do. That's always the case whatever car you buy. But I don't think there is with these. Maybe you have to buy the Vorsprung, and the Vorsprung's 70 grand basic, so it's a good 8 grand more than this car. But can it make up for all that on a good road? Well, we'll find out shortly. Well, welcome to Shrewsbury. We're on the A5, which has got some decent roundabouts, which are probably the first dynamic test of this car, if there's not too much traffic, which there does appear to be. A couple of observations from being in the car for about 2 hours now is that the seats are very long in their base. So if you've got short legs, you might find they're very uncomfortable because they're almost digging into the back of my knees, and I haven't got that short legs. My inside leg's about 32, 33-ish. I think the standard seats have adjustable thigh support to avoid that, so they were quite short until you extended the thigh support. Also, they're too high. In my Skoda Octavia VRS diesel with its pseudo bucket seats, I can sit lower than this, and I'm not that tall. I'm 6 foot. If you're 5'10" or below, you'll probably be all right, but then you might find that the the lower cushion annoys you. Also, you spend 2.5 grand or 2 grand on these, depending which model you go for. You lose the lumbar support. Now, it's not terrible. Oh, just let this 2CV come on, 0 to 60 in 15 days. These seats have lost spec over the standard seats, and I don't think they hold you any better than the standard ones. Okay, we are now in Wales, as you can probably tell by the scenery. We've just left the village of Llanginog. I just thought I'd say that more properly because I kind of didn't in the first video I made around here in my Club Sport S back in the spring. We entered Wales on the B4396 sometime after Knockin, and then we've hit the 4391, got to Llanginog. Lovely public toilets there, good place to stop. We're now just outside Llanginog, going up this road that looks like an alpine pass to all intents and purposes. It's not the best driving road, but it's your first bit of the beautiful, like dramatic Welsh scenery. But the driving roads are coming, because after the Brow, we descend down to Bala on one of my favourite roads of all time, and then we leave Bala and go on to one of my other favourite roads of all time. Okay, already I do have the feeling that the front Pirellis do not have an awful lot of purchase. It's 6 degrees, so admittedly it's quite cold, because they started to push on in that slow speed corner that I was almost going to go for first gear in, which is slightly concerning. But that's why when you drive this car, you need to keep the revs up, because if you find that it pushes on, well, the torque vectorings are only going to work if you get back on the throttle. It's going to take some time to learn this, really. I mean, I'd rather swap right now the torque vectoring for some adaptive dampers and maybe some better tyres. But I'm sure with time I will learn. This is an evil little yump. I'm not going to brake. 60 miles an hour out here. Plenty in these conditions. Okay, this is that road, so we're going to be in dynamic mode, full dynamic, paddle shifting, and let's see how we get on. Okay, so doing 60, the road surface is good, but the car's still a little bit busy, which is disconcerting because you don't know what it's going to do if you hit a mid-corner bump, particularly when the road's a bit greasy. And I don't trust these Pirellis. Steering is lovely and sharp, slightly off camber here. And then, yeah, 53 there. Throttle's a little bit too sensitive in whatever gear that was, third. in dynamic. Brakes are lovely actually. Okay, deeper on the brake. I think this is a bugger of a corner. Second gear. Get the nose in. Anything coming? Explode out the corner. Bloody hell. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's tricky conditions for tyres, 7.5 degrees. That's when a performance tyre really goes off. I guess maybe I'm asking too much in these conditions. Welcome to our final destination then. We're at Black Rock Sands Beach, just outside Porthmadog, one of the few places in the UK where you can drive on the sand. Am I dribbling at the prospect of driving the RS3 home? Let's start with the good bits then. The engine is nice, it's torquey, it does have a lot of character. The interior has most definitely improved since the pre-facelift car. It's only subtle. I don't like this though. We've got haptic, which is a no-no in the Volkswagen world, but the door cards look okay, but there's still a feeling of cheap, and the carpets are just as nasty as they are in a Volkswagen Up. The neither good nor bad points of these seats. If you're taller than me, you'll feel too high, and if you're shorter than me, your legs will be pushing against this, which will be really, really annoying. And then the bad bits. I'll probably put the gearbox in the medium bits because it's like a 6-speed from a Mark 7. It's not terrible, but it doesn't feel as razor sharp as a 7-speed in the latest Golfs. Which brings me on to the Golf R. Now, I've read all the reviews about this car. It's brilliant that you can drive it on track, get the back end out and do drifting as well. That's amazing because with an RS3, it was just understeer, understeer, understeer. So that is amazing, but how does that influence your driving on the road? Not very much. There's not really much room on a good road for the rear end of a car to move around safely. Plus the problem with torque vectoring, it's somewhat unpredictable. So, you know, you can't trust it to fix you going too fast into a corner. And if you do, you have to get back on the gas, which isn't really natural. So the problem with the RS3 is that it's got a lot of weight over the front axle, and that means it pushes on, and you don't get that in a hot Golf. So would I have had more thrills driving here in a Mark 8.5 Golf R? I think I would definitely. It's got torque vectoring as well. It's got the same Magna diff as this car, but it doesn't have the weight over the front axle, and that means that it's got the torque vectoring there when you need it, but it's not essential, and you've got a much higher threshold for going into corners before you start to push on because it's just got a 4-cylinder engine. I love the RS3, and as a sort of 8/10th car, it's really good, but when you get beyond that, I don't think the laws of physics can be changed by torque vectoring. And the price then, so this car is 65 as tested. what's the Golf R now? It's got to be 50 grand. So you can stick the leather in that if you want to make the interior feel a bit more premium. You've already got bucket seats in the Golf R anyway, as standard. They're not as racy as these, but they're still pretty damn good. You could get dynamic chassis control as a standalone option, 700 quid. You get the 19-inch wheels as well, which is what, a grand, 1,200 quid. You're still way below the cost of this car. And yes, the engine isn't as charismatic, but then this isn't as charismatic as it used to be before OPFs sort of silenced it a bit. It's definitely more charismatic, but did I notice that when I was just plodding along in this car? I didn't really. So there's my verdict. I love the RS3, and it's amazing that Audi still make it. We need to count ourselves lucky that these cars exist. But if I had to choose between an 8.5 Golf R and the RS3, even if I took price out of the equation, purely from a driving dynamics perspective on the road, I'd have to go Golf R. The fact it's so much cheaper to me makes it seem like a bit of a bargain, which sounds a bit weird when it's 50k, but there's still money to be had off those cars, probably off the RS3 as well. But I think with the 15% discount you can get off Volkswagens on and off, it's a lot of car for the money. And that car, like the RS3, won't be in production as a non-hybrid for much longer. So yeah, whichever you prefer, if there's no bad choice apart from coming to Wales on a day like today. As ever guys, thanks for watching this Volkswagen video. Keep subscribing, keep commenting, and I'll see you for the next one very soon. Now don't go just yet, because I need to share with you what happened on the way home. Whilst in my opinion the Golf R is that little bit sweeter to drive, I've got to make it clear the RS3 is still pretty damn good, particularly on a deserted Welsh mountain road in the middle of a rainstorm. These may not sound like perfect conditions to fully enjoy a car, but actually with the RS3 they lowered its limits to the point where you could actually drive up to them safely within the speed limits. And cars don't need to be perfect dynamically to still be enjoyable. It's actually driving around their imperfections that make them engaging. So on this road, on this day, in these conditions, I had one of the best drives in my life. And that 5-cylinder engine with the router did sound amazing, and it brought back memories of the rally cars that would have screamed through here back in the 1980s. And you don't get that with the Golf R.